Welcome back, everyone. You know, how many times have you heard it said, you know, you walk into a room and you get a feeling. We don't know anything about the afterlife, yet some people are able to act as a conduit between the spiritual world and the world that we live in. And joining me today is a spiritual medium, Drew Cali. Welcome, Drew.
Thank you for having me.
Very nice to have you here. We have a lot to talk about. Let's start maybe with a very basic premise. When did you discover that you had that talent?
About 5 years ago, I was told by a psychic that I need to do this work, and I was completely skeptical. And I ended up, she said, just meditate tonight. I was like, this is not going to work. Mm-hmm. But I was really intrigued, so I ended up meditating, and everything opened up. I could see, I could hear, I could feel spirits talking to me. It was very unusual, and it took a few days for it to really sink in, and then I've been doing it ever since.
Now, you know what? You used an important word there. Skepticism is probably the first place anybody goes here.
Sure.
I'm very surprised to hear you say that you were skeptical.
Yes, I'm still skeptical of not only other mediums, but also of what I get. And that's why I try to stay evidence-based. I try to stay to what only that person and that spirit would know. It's nothing that I could know. I try to stay away from being general. But I welcome skepticism because I feel like it's more powerful and more potent in my life because of the skepticism. And I feel like it really has changed everything about me and the way I look at life. So I welcome it.
So a lot of people would consider it a gift.
I do. I still feel like I want to call it an ability,
Yeah.
Only because I feel like everyone can connect in some way with spirit. We all receive signs and there's synchronicities when we're in tune. I just feel like maybe the gift is that I can actually do this for work, mm-hmm. and that I'm supposed to, and I feel really called to continue doing this and to continue exploring this and helping others explore this. So in that respect, I do feel like it's a gift.
You know, like with anything, there's a process, and considering that there's probably 3 people or entities involved here, there would be the person living on this here with us now,
Sure.
yourself, and someone from the spiritual world. How do you prioritize?
It's a really good question. I always believe that it's always predicated on the need. And I feel like there's a triangulation that happens, but I feel like I represent the spirit first, the recipient second, and me third. Mm-hmm. Always. I always feel that it may not be the person that they want to hear from, but maybe they need to hear from that person for emotional healing, or that person maybe has some unfinished business that they need to say. And sometimes it's just simply because I can and I love you, mm-hmm. or I'm here and I'm okay.
You know what? You mentioned the 2 words there, unfinished business. I've heard that a lot, even in my own experience. I've felt that. When you go into a room, you never really know what the contact is going to be and how it's going to make itself present. But I would always imagine that it's pretty emotional.
It's a really good question. Again, I in the beginning, I always was overwhelmed by the emotions because I feel like I wear the energy almost like a raincoat, like they come very close to me. Wow. And it's like I'm being influenced through my emotions, through my mind. And I don't know how else to explain it, but over a period of time, I don't get as emotional. I'm more objective about it, mm-hmm. because I know that they're trying to convey to the person through their emotions something, and I try not to get caught up in it. But you're right, I never know what I'm going to get until I get it. I never know who's going to come through, how long they're going to stay, or what the message is going to be.
Is it take the form, and again, this is probably a question that you've thought about yourself many times. Does it come in the form of hearing a voice? Does it come, we have 5 senses.
Sure.
Do they all work in this kind of communication?
Every communicator is completely different. So I could have 3 different communicators come through with cancer. One will show me in a silhouette of an energy that they had chest cancer, like a black spot. Another will make me feel like I have this cancerous condition, and another one I'll hear leukemia. And as far as the hearing, seeing, and feeling, and tasting and smelling, every communicator is a little bit different. Based on my experience, if somebody wants to, even when I hear, it's not outside of me, it's an inner hearing through the mind. Right. So I'll be influenced and I'll hear it, and I may hear it with an intonation or an inflection of a voice. Sometimes I'll know that this person didn't speak English, but I won't hear them in a different language. It'll just come in a vibe like that. I don't know how else to explain it. It's like a knowing.
Wow. I imagine the sense of smell might play a role.
Sure. I hear that a lot. I
Oh,
hear
you
that
do?
a lot. I have a
Okay.
lot of clients that come in and they will say, I smelt my mother's perfume, or I smelt my
wow.
father's cigar. And I feel like that's just their way of saying, I'm here, I'm okay. And I feel like it's a very common way because it's easy. It's so distinct. There's no mistaking that.
Is there any common theme to the kind of messaging between the two worlds?
That's a really great question. I would say it's always based on love.
Oh, wow.
I would say that there's a soul progression afterwards. People always ask me, what happens after? Truthfully, I don't know. I just know that we go on. And I feel that it's important. The evidence of life after life, to me, proves that this life has a purpose and is worth living. So to me, that's really always the essence of the message is I love you, I'm okay, have faith, trust in the process. And sometimes they'll start bringing through other relatives to say, oh, and the dog's here, and this person's here.
Oh, my God.
It's really amazing. It's usually, or sometimes I'll even be aware that they're around the dinner table, and I'll see the food, and I can hear drinks clinking, that they're celebrating that they can come through. Sometimes it's very simple and very subtle, and they just want to come through and say hello.
Well, you know what? Again, being the medium in this exchange, the person here, of course, is very grateful to have some sense of a message. The spirit must be very grateful to have you as a conduit to get to that person. Must be very humbling, right?
It's very humbling.
Yeah, I bet.
It's very humbling because in the beginning, when I first started doing this, I assumed, being a regular skeptic, that if I'm a medium, I could ask any question, get any answer at any time for anybody. It just doesn't work like that.
That's right.
It's not up to me. To take me out of the mix, the first 2 years I did this, it was completely ego-based. I wanted to show what I could get from them and give to you that I couldn't possibly know, and it was like the wow factor. And in the last couple of years, it's been more along the lines of, I just give what I'm getting. And I don't know why it's like that, but I feel like it's more powerful because sometimes the unexpected visitor really has more of an impact.
Oh, I bet it does,
Yeah.
sure. There must be a sense of surprise and shock in some of that as well. By the way, Drew is going to have a group gallery, it's called, at Universal Preservation Hall right here in Saratoga on Sunday, November 13th. I think the doors open at 3:30 p.m. And this is an opportunity for the community to come together, about 100 people or so, right?
Sure.
And Drew will try to, you describe it, I can't
Well,
describe it.
we have Cosby Gibson opening up with some music from 4 to 4:30, and then we're going to do a gallery from 4:30 to 6, which is a group gallery. Is basically I deliver messages to the audience from their loved ones. I can't guarantee everybody a reading, obviously, but it's really a beautiful experience. And to me, mediumship is a neon sign in the window that kind of leads people to the spiritual shop or the hope and peace that there's life after life. So I feel like in a group setting, it's an amazing thing to not only witness, but if you're lucky enough to receive a message, I always feel like that's a beautiful thing. And sometimes someone will come through and I'll be on stage saying, I have somebody here who feels like a dad, they have 3 kids, here's a name, this is how they passed, and do you understand this? And I'll go to somebody and then they'll receive a message. So it's really a beautiful gathering. And I like to say, I always say that I don't take myself that seriously, but I take the work that I do very seriously. So I want people to come, and as much of a sacred experience as it should be, I want them to feel safe. I want them to be able to feel safe to have that healing or emotional moment, but also to laugh and to be in a community with other people that are seeking. And I'm okay with skepticism. I feel like as long as everyone's respectful, it's really always a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Wow. What a gift. Well, it's a real pleasure to meet you. November 13th, it's a Sunday at Universal Preservation Hall right here in Saratoga. And I've just met Drew today, and I got to tell you something. We had a wonderful conversation. So thank you again for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
To see this interview again, you can head to our website, looktvonline.com.